Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
Joe left. Joe's gone.
Okay, so we see Madison crying, talking to someone on the phone, saying that Joe left, Joe's gone. And to fill you in, I didn't really react. I didn't record my reaction to this scene. So Joe at the tuxedo fitting scene, he was at first so in the very beginning when Nick Lachey was interviewing the guys, Joe was saying, yeah, sometimes I'm all in and other times I just want to jump out that window. And Nick Lachey said, well, what do you mean by that? And Joe's like, I didn't realize you're going to ask a follow-up question. And he was like, I don't know, it's just kind of hard. But the way he said it, it sounded like there was some major questions, which I don't think anyone is surprised by. So he said that, then he kind of avoided it. And then when they were trying on tuxedos, he was trying on different ties, and he just seemed uncomfortable. At first, I thought he was just uncomfortable with the fitting, and he wasn't familiar with suits and ties and stuff, which is fine. And he was asked what sort of tie he would wear, a tie or a bow tie or something. And he said, well, I guess a regular tie. Well, first he's like, are ties still a thing? He's like, do people still wear ties? And I'm thinking, well, I mean, usually in weddings, the groom wear a tie. But the other person was like, well, it's up to you. And it is. Certainly there are people that don't wear ties, which is fine. But anyway, then he's like, okay, I'll try a tie. And he just seemed his friends are there. So they give him a tie. And then he is like, oh, how do I do this? And the friends are kind of poking fun at him a little bit. It's like, oh, you don't know how to tie a tie? And instead of him just saying like, yeah, actually I'm forgetting right now, or I don't usually do it, he didn't really lean into that. He seemed almost angry that his friends were making fun of him or something. And again, I thought he was just uncomfortable with the tie thing, and he was trying to do the tie, but it's pretty clear he didn't really know how to do it. But he was just hoping that maybe he magically would just figure it out, which I just want to say is fine. You don't ever have to wear a tie for your entire life. It's just up to you. Some people might have an issue with it, but they can go to hell because you can wear whatever you want to wear within reason, and you don't have to wear a tie. And so he was getting frustrated. Then he is just like, okay, I'm out of here. And he just left the room, and then he just left the venue. And his friends were like, what's going on? So on the surface, it looked like he was pissed that his friends were making fun of him, and he was embarrassed because he couldn't put on a tie. But I wondered if it doesn't take a genius to think that he is ambivalent about getting married, right? Sometimes people use ambivalent to mean that you don't know what you want to do, like you're in the gray zone. But really what it means is that you have oppositional or opposing forces inside of you. One side of you that wants to, another side of you that doesn't. So there's more opposing sides that are, you're ambivalent about something. So it kind of seemed like that. But I wonder if it's really like I want to get married versus I don't, or if it's I don't want to get married, but I don't want to admit it or something like that. Anyway. So then that day or the next day or something, he just left. I wonder what happened. Did he go out and drink or something? Let's see what happens.
Okay, thank you. I love you. Okay. Okay, bye. Joe said that after his tux fitting, he had a total breakdown.
Yeah, and I could see that happening. If we take people at their word, which we don't have any reason to not. I mean, we can't know what's really happening inside their heart, but if we go with the simplest story, he was ambivalent, and then you put on the tuxes and it becomes concrete, it becomes real. And suddenly you're just like, oh shit, this is real, and I don't know if I'm ready for this. So it looks like that's what happened.
Completely detached. He was like, you're not my person.
Okay, so it sounds like at the very least he communicated with Madison that he didn't want to get married. So they had that conversation off camera, which I'm glad that they do that. Those big conversations I think should happen off camera. And so now we're hearing about it.
And he said that if we go to the altar, he's gonna say no. Hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm guessing that through the conversation that I'm hoping was lengthy because it would require that she might have said, well, maybe we should give it more try. What if we have another week until the wedding? Why don't we try? And he at some point probably said, actually, I'm for sure if we go to the altar, I'm going to say no. I don't want to go on the show. Because she might have also said, like, well, maybe we can just continue with the show. And, who knows what will happen at the altar. She's like, no, I got to tell you, it's definitely a no at the altar.
Just stopped a little bit.
Did you?
So I'm very encouraged by their hug here because that says a lot. Hopefully they can keep it. Now, if things get a little wonky, if she starts to unravel, that's understandable. Hopefully he just sticks with it. I could imagine that he could have empathy through the breakup. So let's see what happens. I could also see her not unraveling and having had a lot of feelings. The sadness and the disappointment, the hurt is normal, expected, and some anger is also understandable. Some freak out period of time is, within reason is understandable. But it's a solid, healthy move to grieve and be sad and be together, and you don't necessarily have to agree. You don't necessarily have to say, let's be friends, or, it doesn't all have to be rainbows and everything, but it's just a sad situation. And if you believe in humans and if you believe in yourself and if you have a working model of yourself and others that are generally good and trustworthy, then if you're Madison, you would see Joe at your good points and say, like, he's a good person and he's just not feeling it. In fact, I don't know if I'm feeling it either, but I was just still, holding out hope for this. But yeah, I'm sad. This hurts, and I don't think he's doing this out of malice. I don't think he's faking it, that kind of stuff.
Just a rough time at the tux fitting because it just, I think that was the breaking point. I mean, I just wanted to follow and keep going and as long as I could, but I feel like I've come to the point of where I know.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, that he was trying and holding out hope or going into denial or all the above. And then once the tux fitting happened, it was, I can't, I know that this isn't going to work.
Just fucking so crazy going from trying on wedding dresses and then you breaking up with me.
So we'll use this as a jumping off point. It's a very frequent thing that when you are being dumped, you will focus on the way you're being dumped and get angry about it because it's harder to acknowledge that you're being dumped and you're hurt and thus angry and you're just looking for something to point your anger at. The audiences will do this too. What's he supposed to do? It sounds like he was legitimately, if you asked him before the tuxes, he'd be like, yeah. If you really cornered him, he'd say, well, I'm hoping that I'll say yes at the altar. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of fear and there's some concerns, but yeah, I mean, I'm still willing to move forward and give this a try. And then the tux fitting happens and it just all sets in the rest of his life, the wedding itself. And he's just like, oh, I'm really feeling it right now. No. So that, makes sense. And then it's natural for her to say, well, it's humiliating because I went to the dress fitting. Why did you wait? You should have told me earlier. And he's not good at articulating himself. Now, I don't even know if I'm understanding him right. I'm speculating as to what was happening for him. But now, you could make an argument that, well, before she went to the wedding dress, he should have really sat down or at least did a visualization of him putting on the tuxedo to really make sure, because, but in terms of she's not humiliated. There's nothing wrong with what she did. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of how you see things. But anyway, so regardless of what's happening here, we can think about this for our own lives. And when we're helping a friend or we're a therapist working with a client, it's totally normal for people who are being dumped to say, I can't believe that he broke up with me 2 days before my birthday, or I can't believe that he broke up with me, that he didn't break up with me before my birthday and he let me have my birthday party with him and then he broke up with me. Like it's hard. Now, should the person breaking up think about it? Absolutely. Should they be thinking about breaking up in a humane way? Yeah. And now, honestly, I generally speaking will tell people as soon as you know for sure, tell them. There's no good moment. Then the sooner the better. And it can compound the hurt if they are told that there was a period of time, maybe a long period of time, that you were done and you didn't tell them. And you were just it's lying. It's a huge lie. Now, some people won't really take issue with it. And there's ways of wording it that aren't lying, really. It's like, well, like you might tell your therapist you're sure, and then a month later you're breaking up, and then you tell the person you're dumping that, I don't know, I'm not a fan of where I'm heading in this direction, but you could say something like, well, yeah, I told my therapist that I was sure, but there was still a little bit. And I don't know, I was just worried that it would be the wrong time, and I kept kicking the can down the road, and I'm sorry about that. There's those ways of doing it, but it's a very common thing. Now, what he should do is say, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know until I was putting on the tux. That's all he needs to say. Let's see what he says.
I think you can still have love for somebody, but know that maybe they're not the right one.
So I just want to understand, why? What is missing?
Okay, good. So she's not on that train. He didn't address it. The question she asked, why did you wait until after I put my dress on? And so she's not fixated on that. She's getting back to a really, actually good question that anyone would have. Now, how do you answer this question? So let's see how he answers.
No, I don't have any answers.
You don't have any reasons.
Okay, so he's saying, I don't have any answers. We will often look for reasons why we're breaking up with someone, or we'll look for reasons why someone's breaking up with us. But from a certain point of view, one that I kind of hold, at least to some extent, is that we can look for reasons and data points, but unless it's really obvious, it just comes down to that feeling that you have. If someone asked you, why are you in love? Why are you marrying someone? When we hear it on the show, people have their data points, but really, you could find another person that would also meet those data points, and you would never want to be in a relationship with them. So what is that? Chemistry, fate, love, what is that thing that we experience, that compulsion, that match, that feeling, that mutual thing? That's why there's so many poems and songs and art, and there's a billion different Hallmark cards that describe this feeling, because it's indescribable. So when we're breaking up, it's also indescribable as to why we just know it's over, why we know we're no longer in love. We no longer want to be with this person. It's confusing, and it's hard to describe. I've worked with clients for years on this question. They will come to me saying they're 50-50, or they're thinking about getting a divorce, but they're not quite sure yet. And we could talk for years in therapy about it, and they'll go up and down, and they'll have their bullet points, they'll have their pros and cons, and it's just hard to make that choice. How do you know? When you have affection for someone, how much love is what you should expect after 10 years or 20 years of being together? What's normal? What do I want? What's the meaning of life? Because you have to tolerate things about your partner regardless. Are you just being picky? It's just a billion questions, and there's no answer. There's no concrete, scientific, mathematical way of evaluating that. So it's just another way to put it in terms of concrete neurology, or science of the body, or the mind, is that we have a number, any number of factors that are playing into the nugget of motivation to be with someone. It's chemistry, it's our memory, it's our vibe, it's the way someone smells, it's the way we feel, it's how much distress we feel when we see them. It's how many needs they meet for us. It's are we on our future together? Just everything bubbling up, little things like the way that they blink, the way their skin touches, the way they kiss, the way they smile, your history, just all that kind of, is in this cauldron and it's just cooking, and then something emerges. That's a weird way of putting it. But or maybe another way is it's going into a funnel. And then at the spout of the funnel comes yes, no, maybe, And sometimes, you put all that shit in there and half of it is unconscious and you just get this no. And okay, so you work your way backwards into the funnel, and half the stuff you don't even know where that comes from. You don't know why it was yes, and you don't know why it was no. So his answer of like, I just don't know, is potentially one of the wisest things we might hear on the show. Having said that, I don't think that's why he's saying it. I think he's avoiding. I think he has things to say, as people usually do, and he doesn't want to hurt her. He doesn't want to get in a fight. The more I watch him, the more I think he might be kind of a pleaser, actually. He didn't seem that way at the beginning because he seemed kind of like a dude bro who didn't really care about anything and just wanted to party. But the more I watch him with her, the more I think he stuffs his feelings and is just trying to like, what's going on? Are we okay? I mean, not like desperate, but kind of in that direction. So I could see him in this moment wanting to say something and thinking, my prime directive is to not hurt people's feelings. And so I can't tell her. That could have even been why he was panicking as he was putting on the tuxedo. There could have been a large part of him that was just like, we're not doing this. We've known for a while. And he couldn't admit it to himself because that would mean hurting her feelings. You know what I mean? So, so he's saying, I don't know. I would recommend that he says, now he doesn't have to say something right now. He could say, I need time to think. All I know is that it's a no. And I'm just a whirlwind of feelings right now. And yeah, I guess I have my reasons, but I don't know. I feel like I just need more time to figure it out before I articulate it. I don't want to say something stupid. And I just need time. And as soon as I knew it was no, I wanted to tell you. And I'm so sorry I don't have reasons right now. So you could do that. Or he could, in his mind, he has something that he tells himself, like, well, it's because she yells at me or something like that. But he could ratchet that back because he doesn't want to hurt her feelings and give her a complex. And he could say, well, I don't think we were exactly compatible because we would get in fights occasionally. I'm not saying it's your fault. It could be all I don't know. But, we had some tough times and I'm just not used to that. Or something like that. Let's see what he says.
It's just not right. It's not right. I could feel it.
I just want to know why it's wrong. Because that's where you're not giving me any clarity on that.
In fact, he could worry that if he were to say something concrete-ish, that she would start arguing with him. And he's been through enough arguments with her that he just doesn't want to have that argument. And that she might bulldoze or fixate on a thing. Like, what are you talking about? That's not true because and he's... Now, that's not a reason to avoid the whole thing, but he could wonder about. I don't know if she'll do that, though. She seems totally calm, actually. So, which makes me wonder if she was starting to accept that it might not work out as well or something. Anyway, I just had a thought that with all of the role-playing of breaking up that I've done while watching this season with y'all, I wonder how many of you are thinking, or maybe even commenting below, is just like, golly, Kirk must have broken up with a lot of people because he certainly has a lot of ways of breaking up with people. And I'll say, no, it's just a part of, I don't know, being a therapist or something. There's a lot. The way that I role play things is the way on this channel is the way that I role play with my clients. I do a lot less talking with my clients. With my clients, 99% of the time, I'm listening because clients have a lot of things to say, and especially with long-term clients, which is, all of my clients that I've had for the past 15 years are all long-term, like 5, 10, 15-year long clients, then they kind of know what I'm going to say anyway, and so I don't have to say much. And now when I say things, and it looks like kind of the way I say things here. But anyway, I've had a lot of experience role-playing because I learned a long time ago that if I try to help people with knowing themselves or communication or with accessing their empathy, self-talk or something, I don't know, it was one thing to just tell someone to do it and say, hey, try to be more healthy in your communication or talk about your feelings. And, I guess as an analogy, when I was in graduate school, so I'm mildly dyslexic and I've always struggled with reading and writing. I didn't know I was mildly dyslexic until rather recently, which is kind of funny. And I've been, an academic and I've obviously read and written a lot, but I have always just thought I was just kind of dumb in that way or something. And maybe I am, or maybe that's a definition of dumb. I don't know. But I have recently, connected the dots and realized that, oh my God, I have all the class. And listen to my episode. I did a whole episode like, I have dyslexia, or I can't remember what I called it, but I have worked on it and done a lot of workarounds. And so my point is, what was my point? When I would write, I would get an assignment in college or graduate school even. The professor would give me the assignment, say, okay, you got to read this article and write this paper, or you have to blah, blah, blah. And I just always marveled at how easy it was for other students to look at the instructions and write a paper that was passable and do it fairly quickly without a lot of pain in the ass. And for me, I would just be staring at the instructions and having, even though in class, verbally or in other topics, I was fine. I might have, you could say, I even excelled in other academic areas. But when it came to that, I just like, I don't understand what's happening. I don't know why it never occurred to me to think there was something different about me. I think I just went into denial, which we do. So what would help me is when professors gave me an example, and I was so happy when that would happen. I remember the first time I was assigned a lit review in graduate school, and I'm like, what's a lit review? And they described it, and I had read lit reviews before, but I hadn't read a paper version of something that you would submit in class. And so eventually the professor gave me another student's paper, and I was just like, oh, I get it now. So when I have been helping my clients, when I role play, some of you might experience this. I think some people have emailed in around this, commented below, saying that when I do role play, they're like, oh, I get it. So I'm not an expert on breaking up with people. Or I am, but not because of that.
Yeah.
If not me, who and why? If not us, why? What is it about me that isn't working? It's not a me thing?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's not anything I can pinpoint.
Okay. It could be what I was saying, where he either hasn't explored it yet, which is a good possibility. I mean, so given what he's saying here, if we trust him, which I think we can, at least to some extent, because, the other version of this is that he absolutely knows, but he doesn't want to say because he wants to avoid either hurting her feelings or looking bad in front of the camera or something. But, there's a version of the story where he, after having fights, because, for us watching, I don't know about you, but watching them fight, it is pretty easy for us as the audience to be like, okay, well, they're done, right? One or both of them are like, yeah, that's it. But we're not in love with this relationship. We're not in love with that person. We're not spending all that time. We don't have all our needs involved. So it would, take a lot to dislodge that. And so we can imagine Joe, given his way, experiencing some sharp edges that are hurting him and just saying, okay, well, we made up, and he just, is pushing forward. Meanwhile, there's this growing sense of doom. And then if you asked him consciously, he would say the way he answered the question to Nick Lachey at the fitting, where he's just like, well, half of me is great and half of me wants to jump out a window, something like that. And then when asked, well, what do you mean by that? He's like, oh, well, no, I don't normally go farther than that. Panic. He kind of had that look to it. So he might not have been obscuring what was happening underneath that statement. He might not ever look there because that's his way. A lot of people are like that. There's a lot of reasons for that, right? Some of them understandable, some of them trauma related. Anyway, so then the tux, and thank goodness he had to put on the tux, because it does seem to have really made him look beyond that statement, which it kind of had that look, right? Because as soon as he saw it, he bolted, right? So let's run with this. If he knew what was underneath that statement, half I'm all in, half I want to jump out a window. If he knew what was underneath that, if he was even halfway familiar with it, then once he puts on the tux and he's just like, whoa, this is getting real, he would have already known how to stuff or how to justify moving forward. It's almost like for the first time he had to look below that. He panicked, which is kind of a good thing, right? Because he was reacting with honesty and with authenticity and with care, right? And bolted. And he's, oh my God, right? And so he bolts. And then he immediately tells Madison. And then Madison's like, well, what's going on? Why? And then, but all he knows is underneath the panic or the uncertainty is just like this big no. Now, again, I'm guessing that if a friend asked him, he would say, well, you know, she fought with me all the time, you know, but he doesn't know how to say it. All right, well, tune in next time when I continue watching. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.